We live? Beautiful. All right, let's go through this risk radar and then let's get Charlie Moon's takes. Nothing's changed yet. Right now, you still have green for stocks. We're hanging around in the same area that we've been in. S&P 500 sitting at 63, 69 right now. Little bit of pullback, but still not the worst. I'm watching the dollar in particular. The dollar is pretty strong, up 50 bips. I'm wondering if that dollar, which has been sitting right in yellow, might have to turn green pretty soon. Dollar right now is solid yellow, but I might be shifting that over towards the green if it keeps rallying. That's where the Fed stuff comes in. Mr. Jerome Powell, if he surprises at all, if he doesn't sound dovish enough, then that dollar is probably going to get jacked up. So that's my main thought here on the macro. Charlie Moon is with us this afternoon, coach at Prosper Trading Academy, momentum trader, crypto trader. Charlie, good to see you. Thanks for being here this afternoon.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Hey, Bitcoin on my risk radar right now is still green, or rather it's yellow, but it's close to green. It's like, seems like we're range bound. Is it going to break down, or are we going to survive and get back into the like 115s?
You know, that's a great question. It seems like more than anything, there's a bit of a rotation that's been taking place, right? People are starting to pile more into Ethereum. They're trying to play that upside move here as Ethereum is playing catch up to Bitcoin. And we're seeing the lack of interest. We're seeing that actually draw into names like, MSTR, for example. We all know, what kind of, Bitcoin Maxius that Michael Saylor is, and they're trading underneath their 200-day moving average now. So for me, it seems like the market hasn't moved on from Bitcoin, but they're looking at their other shiny toy. They're looking at Ethereum as the next potential big face ripper move. And it just seems like there's a bit of lack of interest or demand for Bitcoin as we're starting to see Ethereum hold up and perform a lot better than the BTC counterpart.
The crypto rotation, if you will. I'm looking at Master right now, MSTR trading below 340 to your point. I mean, that thing unwound pretty hard. How is your kind of framework, Charlie, working MicroStrategy and the leverage into understanding crypto? Because one of the things that I've been thinking about is that since MicroStrategy is such levered Bitcoin, that it's like the truer risk asset these days.
Yeah, and it almost doesn't make sense. Why do we want to buy into, MSTR to play BTC when we could have that kind of exposure with, like the gentleman that you're talking about into the ETFs? So, I don't know. It was a retail darling. It seems like it's lacking the retail interest now. It's starting to really underperform. For me, I see this actually breaking down as low as 275 in the near term. If it doesn't catch a bid and get right back up to 350 here.
For Master, you think 275?
Yeah, I mean, this is where the projectable downside is. From a charting standpoint, there's a lot of room to fall that they've lost and blasted down through, some pretty key, support levels that it's been trying to ride up over the last 3 or 4 months. So it just seems like in terms of performance, in terms of charting, it's taken on a really bearish take. And really that 275, maybe even as low as right around 230 could be the balancing point where people are going to start accumulating the stock again. I just don't, it used to kind of be in lockstep with Bitcoin, but it's just kind of losing its flavor right now. So we'll either have to have some sort of catalyst that brings MSTR right back up. Otherwise, it's just going to start becoming a slow bleed here.
You got to basically pray that if you're long MicroStrategy, and I think if you're long Bitcoin too, that it doesn't break down below 250, 240, which was where I just put the support on. But there's plenty of other momentum stuff, Charlie. Do you think any of the Robinhood, the Open, any of that other stuff has kind of usurped any of the limelight from the cryptos? You think the equity world has given enough juice?
Yeah, and again, we talk about valuation standpoints, right? And again, a lot of these are really attributed to retail darlings. Hood is one of them. But this is another one that's a bit frothy and, yeah, and it's not to say that this is ready to roll, but, anytime we've seen historically strong double top rejections, which Hood really had right at that 117.70 level, and we start seeing acceptance, meaning trading behavior below key indicators such as the 20 SMA, which is one of the values that I look at, for short-term strength. then we started saying, well, is it going to start breaking down at these longer term moving averages? And again, whether it's names that are attributed, right? We could say there's other names that maybe we see the rotation in. BLSH, the new IPO, the Peter Thiel backed and run, I guess foreign exchange or asset here. That took a big hit off of their IPO day, rolling way off of their highs, but they're sparking up off of their lows the last 2 days, and maybe we're starting to see retail traders and Wall Street seeking more value opportunities with much better upside as opposed to trying to take shots in hood to get that 2 to 4% gain. It just, things are starting to look very top heavy. The market this week, in terms of a lot of the retail names, have really broken down to a degree.
Yeah, Walmart, Costco.
Yeah, and I haven't seen these names break down. And more importantly, then we look at the retail trading side, names like ASTS, for example, Hood, OKLO. These are names that your normal retail traders are all trying to pile into. Palantir as well, that fits in that basket. And those stocks were just getting absolutely rolled while the markets were barely moving down. So something was happening this week. I wasn't sure what. I still can't pinpoint it. People have alluded to the secondary yen carry trade. I don't buy it. I don't really see why it's unraveling, especially with Jerome Powell speaking tomorrow.
Maybe we find out next week if Powell does something crazy. Hey, on Palantir, real fast. Because a lot of those charts that were really juicy, they kind of chopped, they broke down, they're getting harder to read. Palantir to me still generally looks like a up and to the right trend. Do you like it at 155? You like it at 160?
For a short-term play, yeah, I think this is one of the names that could definitely spark up and regain their 50-day moving average today. So it got down to a point where maybe Wall Street said that $50 pullback, that's enough. They basically went from 190 to 140, jumped right up, almost hit 160 today. I believe they got up to 158. And, we're starting to see that responsive behavior. Palantir as well actually finished the day positive, held up in the upper portion of their intraday range, which tells me that demand was still following the stock price as it was climbing off the lows. So this is one of those names that are showing signs of life while the others are starting to show more signs of, bearish behavior, so to speak, more risk off versus risk on trading.
I appreciate that. Yeah, Palantir 158 at the highs today, so not quite as dead in the water. Stayed up. Charles, you the man. Good stuff. Nice look at the specifics. Appreciate it very much, Charlie Moon.
Thank you, brother.
Prosper Trading Academy.